Hello, hello. Good evening. I have decided to show up. I've been doing something else and was giving my time to something else. So my attention and my focus is somewhere else, and I couldn't be fully present for making a proper transmission that I want to, but I just decided that I show up, and I show up with my crown that I haven't worn in a while because I didn't really feel like it. And uh, unlike the last time video that I made in Serbian, I basically repeated everything I already said in my previous video in English, my last video in Serbian, because there were some things I haven't mentioned because the events occurred after it, the war started in after it. But I I don't want to be in that place anymore. I don't want to speak about that anymore. I have changed positions again because I didn't like the lightning and the angle there, and that's it. It's I'm thinking of changing scenery a little bit for doing this in the future. But for now, I'm here again in my full regalia because I felt like it. It's just I've been doing some work lately on myself. So that last talk turned out to be about faith from me, you know, because we were all in a whole lot of desperation, and I've been just before sitting here, although I'm listening to some transmissions from feminine group, priestess group that are a little bit different, but I I turned on a video from somebody I haven't heard in a while, and there's like that there was that again, a whole lot of desperation in what is happening and what is about to unfold and what is going to come, and I'm just feeling like I really had enough of that. We're all about spiritual business, spiritual entrepreneurship. Everybody's doing that now. We're all talking something, we are reminding people how we are divine, but there's actually very little divine in all of this. And as I was giving time to some of my creations and clearing up some of my paths toward and reminding myself of faith, giving listening to all of this, and listening to much of what others had to say about all of the situation and everything that is going on, and all of the ideas of why are things unfolding, and why are things like this for a certain person or a certain path, or for me, and you should do this and you should do that, and this is about your faith. I was just, hang on. I mean, I wouldn't be able to be here where I am if I didn't have any faith. I was just speaking to somebody yesterday um, about some of the things that are about what I'm doing right now, and it's all about faith. I wouldn't be anywhere without it. So yeah, I got to the point where I was in a little bit of desperation because of not of lack of it in the world, of not seeing it in the world, of everything that is going on, and people not focusing attention where they need to focus their attention on, and focusing on distractions too much. And sometimes I honestly also even wonder how much of a distraction something like this is, and constantly reminding of what is actually going on and what's behind all of uh, the agendas and plans. And yeah, it should be said, but isn't it pretty obvious by now that I've been speaking a lot about choices, and I'm also tired about speaking about choices, but isn't it pretty obvious by now? But that is all about choices. So if somebody chooses not to see something or make a decision that is going to harm him in the long run, and it's not listening and can't connect to his higher guidance, yeah, he should be reminded, but that doesn't mean that his higher power and his higher guidance or hers is not reminding him all the time. And there is a point where they actually move away and allow the person to experience the consequences of their own choices, because it's the only place, the only way that we learn. And if you don't want to listen, and if you don't want to accept what you're being told, then you're obviously at some point going to be feeling the consequences of your choices sooner or later. I mean, it's always sooner, but sometimes we don't get the pictures, we don't get the dots together. So maybe we get to them in the next run, in the next lifetime. And yeah, those choices influence all of us. But if somebody won't believe you, he just won't believe you. It doesn't really matter what you do and what you say and in what way and in what manner you say it. The only way that someone gets it is by experiencing something. So if some people choose to make that transit and make their in these times, to exit in these times, to take an exit route in whatever way, it's their choice. Whether consensual or not, it's still their choice. There is for some of us, it is a task to raise awareness and speak the truth of what's been going on. But we have been doing that. We have already done it, and people are still making their own choices, and they're still in their own trajectory, in their own dimension. So I decided for a bit that I'm gonna be focusing on my own trajectory and my own, shifting awareness somewhere else, so that I can be, ouch, so that I can be in the dimension where I want to be, because it was like too much of a heavy energy around me. And I was clearing some of the things from the past, of course, and I'm transmuting and I'm purging just like everybody else. But I started wondering, really, where is God in all of this, and in everything that we are showing, in everything that we are saying. Because if we're still harming someone with our choices, or being inconsiderate to how somebody feels, or what are their repercussions or actions to somebody else. Regardless of whether we're speaking about spirituality or not, or we're awake or not, we are not really awake. We're not speaking from the place of compassion and from the place of being humble towards the divine. So those were like my thoughts and my dwelling since the last video I made. And yeah, it kind of disarms me, and it kind of disappoints me and make me be in a desperation when I see so much lack of it in the world, even in the spiritual community. Because %70 of it is just, let's make quick bucks, or let's show off, or let's show some power. It not it starts with looking for a purpose, but then somewhere along the way, ego shows up, or other people with their opinions show up, or whatever. And the deeper you go, the further you are on the road, and the longer you're there, and the tests and things that show up are different from you. Everything is from you. It's all within. And yes, it's all a reflection. And yes, but also yes, there are other people who have their own choices. But also, when you are going deep into the devotion, tests are harder. And people are, in spite of what I just said, that there is a lack of the divine in what I'm seeing that is happening, people are hungry of the divine. People are in desperate need of God. People are hungry for God. And the more you go and the more you devote to the divine, the more people who are the worst case scenario of lack of the divine and a hunger for divine will show up. Not only in their desperation and in their need, or the disease, or the pain that are in, but as in the ones who are so far from it, who are like pitch black, as you would think, that they don't have any thread of it anymore, because they are in the worst kind of need. And they will be drawn to the light of the divine that starts showing up in you, even while thinking that they want to distinguish it. And even everything that I've been mentioning, speaking about the energy theft and all of the things to exist, it's because of the hunger for the divine, for God. But also a fear of ego to surrender to it. fear. Oh God, she's she's taking over. Fear of being transmuted and of losing identity in the divine, but still in utmost need of it. The human soul cannot help but go into the light. The human soul, wherever it is, now little threads of it are left connected to the body, cannot help but thirst for God and run to it. As the moths are drawn to the light, knowing that they will burn, even the ones who seemingly lack any existence of the divine in them. Even those who seemingly will burn and perish. Energy is indestructible. In the light, they will change form. And the only fear is their fear of union. Is the fear of yourself, of themselves, of the unknown depths, of the sacred heart. And who they become when they lose their identity, when they lose their grip. Their own judgment is what they fear. Because they have been only doing this to themselves all along. It's the fear that we all have in ourselves. Submerge is more committed in shining a light, in transmuting all the transgressions, and in all the barriers and all the obstacles of what once was light, and it's not light anymore. Your human soul cannot help but seek out God. It doesn't really matter how far it went, and how long it has been. Now, when the collective of self reaches a certain point of connecting back with God, even those ones will remember how it is to melt in the love. They do not fear love, they fear losing identity. A real one, imagine one, installed. It doesn't really matter what. In the love of the divine, all is forgiven, and all are welcome. It is their own judgment that they fear. And if you really want to help anyone, lift your eyes to God. Keep your eyes focused on God, not by inviting, not by promoting, not by showing up, not by repressing, suppressing, disclosing. Just keep your eyes fixed to God. The vine is the one that does all the work. When the need arises, fear arises, it's okay. to say, I'm afraid of the situation that is unfolding. I feel fear all around and I'm scared. It doesn't really matter how loud you get in trying to say things that you see, things that you're shown, things that are going to happen. It's not everybody's truth. It's not going to happen to everybody. Work on you and on your fear. It is all in you. It is about who you choose, and you should always choose to find. Keep your eyes fixed on God. It doesn't really matter what is the outcome, and when does it occur, and what's the next thing. And keep eyes on the divine. And the next thing is divine co-creation with you and everybody else, focusing on the divine. Things that fall apart get removed according to the choices of the ones around you. Are of their own making, their own choices, and of yours. Who do you keep track with? Who do you follow? You keep your eyes on the divine and follow the divine, follow God. Would you keep doing that even when there's nobody else around? These are all tests of your making and of your choices. What do you focus on? Look back. Have you had faith? And how did it show up in your life? My choice, the choice of this vessel, and it would, my higher self is removing itself a little bit now. It was not me speaking, really. Is to follow the divine And in the long run, maybe I don't know how I reached there, but in the heart of the situations, I feel I have been choosing to focus on the divine all the time. And there were choices in my life where I, I was shown that I was protected. I was shown that I was guided. But when I allow my mind to interfere like I allow now, I get a little bit disconnected. It moves away a little bit. Although it's always turning the wheel. How about if you choose to say, here I am, I show up, just as I am, in my full regalia, in my full presence. Just as I am. And I give my heart, and I give my soul, and I give my body, and I give my thoughts. Do whatever. Do what's needed. Work through me, speak through me, speak the truth. How about if we all did that? Without questioning who we are going to be in that moment, in the next moment. How would we survive tomorrow and day after tomorrow and all of our family and everybody else? And how about if we just say, here I am, work your magic through. Even if I have no followers, even if nobody listens, even if there's only me and the divine, how about that? How would that be? How would this world be a different place? And how would it change me? I knew how to do that once upon a time. I just reminded myself yesterday of the situation where I went to Bangkok airport from here, from Serbia, with only 20 euros in my pocket without even knowing how will I get from the airport to Bangkok, and not knowing anybody in the city and not knowing the city itself. I just said I'm going there. And there was a limo waiting for me at the airport, and I didn't know at that time that's going And I'm still playing small sometimes. Like I don't have faith. Because sometimes me, just like anybody else, don't recognize that it's faith in that moment, that it's working through me. How about saying, hey, my mom died just 2 weeks ago and I'm still following my path. I'm choosing to follow this line, this path, and go where I'm guided, instead of sitting home and mourning and listening to what everybody else thinks of what I should be doing now. And this comes from me, from my experience, from what I lived through, and I was in those situations. I mentioned several times I sat on a bus that was near the place that was being bombed. And the moment I entered that bus, I fell asleep and I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear any detonations. I didn't know what happened until I arrived. A bus being late, of course. Now, I got out and I didn't know why people were upset, because nobody told me and I didn't hear anything because I slept through it until my mother, who waited for me, took me by. Those are stressful and scary situations. There are many situations that we maybe shouldn't have never found ourselves in. And there are even scarier situations where some people end up due to their path and following or not following their path. We don't know what somebody's scenario is for this lifetime or any lifetime. But what we do understand with our hearts is that everybody has a higher power guiding them, overlighting them, and protecting them. And yes, we're faced with the situations that we cannot say. It is hard to say that somebody chose this. We don't know. Maybe they haven't, maybe they have. And of course, there are things that we experience as painful and hard. And there are situations where these souls choose to exit in these moments. By the way, that's one of the reasons why I didn't hear anything, but I chose to come back. I had another life situation where I don't remember 45 minutes of my life. It was not a scary situation. It was a healing process that I chose, that I willfully went through rushing to without knowing what's going to happen and what awaits me. And I still don't know where I was and what. I was completely unconscious, and my body was functioning obviously as I'm here. But there are still examples like this all around, all over, of overcoming these kind of situations. That is what I'm aiming at with these stories. As much as of hardships and trauma, and I know I've been sharing a whole lot of traumatic stories of my own and of other people's. Life is like that. It shouldn't be. It doesn't have to be. It's all about where you choose to shift your focus on. Focus on the divine. If your eyes are turned to the divine, to God, and your soul is strong enough to get you through situations like that or heal you from a deadly disease or an injury, then you have not a divine spark in you, have divine fire burning strongly in you. And all of those who need to warm up, who need to be fed, who need to make food, who need to take a spark so that they can light their own fire, or the ones that are triggered by that fire because they don't themselves know what they need from it and why there. Because it moves too much, burns too much of the dross in them, will be drawn to you. And all of the flaws and all of the imperfections, all of what needs to be healed will be shown, will be visible for them to see, for you to see. You and them. You might need to learn how to handle the energy of somebody who doesn't know how to handle their own energy. And they will maybe try to hand it over to you so that you deal with their unfinished businesses. Maybe it will move the unfinished business between you. Maybe they will give you their own frustration and fear, or anger, or sadness, or whatever it is that they don't want to face. Maybe you need some protection from it, some distance from it, some learning points of how to keep on burning brightly and focus. Keep your eyes up on the divine, because the divine does all the work. There is a point in time where we all reach the goal. There is a point in time where gatekeepers close the gates. When they are the last ones to leave. There is a point in time where we all have our chance for coming up to the next level, or the salvation. There is a point in time where we all have our good steward, our good shepherd, reaching out and taking the lost sheep on their own back, all the way back. But it is not up to us to decide who's worthy or unworthy. The divine usually knows why. We are all divine, and we're all lost souls, lost fragments of the higher selves that come to our rescue in due time. When we stream through dimensions and go in a session through different points of different realities, which you need to understand it is all us, the divine, the higher beings. We are fragments of them, we are their parts, we are their lost sheep. and they were reaching for us through a steward, through a therapist, through a situation, or literally on their own. We are part of those higher beings. They are fragments. So nothing is ever lost. It's just about timing, when we are ready to understand that we are all this and embody the fullness of it. Even with the fear of it all, even with being shown how far some can go and move away. When you're ready to embody the fullness of who you are, of the divine, you will know that they're hungry for God. And in their forgetfulness of it, they are disturbed. They're not immature, they are sick, deranged, dysfunctional. They're dots, they're codes. We're turned around, turned upside down. It's a disease, an imperfection, a fragmented spirit. And it's fear of becoming something else. Much seemingly unfamiliar. Just project their own image back to them and stay focused. This is the advice from the Divine Spirit. Now that was different. I can't go on, but I won't because I'm feeling a bit tired, depleted. My own mind was interfering a little bit, so I'm sorry, but this I, I haven't done this before so far, as you know. What I wanted to say to all the people struggling at the moment also is to mm, I because of the clients that have been coming to me recently with health issues, I have been reading this book, Medical Medium, which to the wider community maybe not that unfamiliar. It was to me, although I have it in my possession for the last year and a half. I haven't read it so far because I didn't have the need for it. I didn't have that kind of clients. And there are a lot of good advices in there on how to detox from some of the things and viruses that all these things that are put in the air and then the pollutants and everything that it's inorganic is happening and some of the things that are put into us and from the vaccines that people choose to take and the shedding of the vaccines. There are good advices there that you can follow to detox and fasting techniques and that's what my mind put like an idea that I have to tell you at the moment. So I don't know how this turned out. I guess this is how my transmissions from now on will look like. So yeah, next one will be a little bit of light language. I haven't done this in a while, so thank you for your attention and yes, to work on you what comes up along the way. It is not easy, but that's the only way that we will all get through all of this. If you need support to connect for a session or conversation or consultations or whatever, I'm I'm open for connections. See you next time.